Good evening. I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen meeting for March 5th, 2018 back to order. We started tonight's meeting in executive session where we talked about some union contracts and negotiations with the HEA union, as well as some financing for research of owners unknown properties. There's a fund set aside, voted by town meeting, to allow real estate and open space to pursue titles and look at bad titles for land we may want to acquire. So tonight we did vote in executive session to allow them to use some of those funds to pursue a parcel of land. With that, as required by open meeting law, we are informing you that we will be video, audio taping, as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience wishing to video or audio tape must notify the chairman now. Hearing no one, please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's just the ballast. Wish we had some spirits.
Thank you. Anyone for weekly briefing? Chief?
Chairman, if anybody didn't notice, we had a storm over the weekend.
Thanks for that.
This was Lee Culver's hurricane. You know, Lee has been saying for years, our emergency management director, you know, it's not if, it's when, and we had the when. The winds were Friday night, early Saturday morning, were in excess of 90 miles an hour. The town sustained a tremendous amount of tree and power damage. We still have some folks without power, but we are quickly returning to normal status. Just some anecdotes from the fire department. And I want to back up and say the fire department, the police department, the highway department, the water department, all did a fantastic job. Everybody's tired and did a lot of great work, and we all worked, as we always do, together to get through that. From the period of from Friday night, Friday morning to Saturday morning, the fire department responded to 90 emergencies. On a busy day in the summertime, we're impressed when we do 20 to 30. We did 90. From Saturday to Sunday morning, that decreased to 59 incidents. We had 47 occurrences of 2 calls at once. We had 23 occurrences of 3 at once. We had 7 occurrences of 4 at once. We had 5 occurrences of 5 at once. When I say once, that's at the same time. These are 911 emergency calls. We had 7 occurrences of 6 at once. We had 2 of 7 at once. And we had 5 of 8 at once. So we were greatly taxed. We do our normal business, so-called, our medical calls. We had 2 building fires that we went to in Dennisport. During the height of the storm, we did have some folks in a pickup truck get trapped for an hour and 10 minutes with live primaries on their vehicle, and that had a good outcome. I guess what's most impressive to me is that there's a couple with 2 small children on Long Road, or Skipper's Drive, that just got their power back this afternoon that felt that they wanted to bring us pizza on Saturday. So that's my report.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you and your team for everything they did.
I really don't like following Norm.
I wouldn't either.
Exactly. But I do have to say the community center is open. It is a warming station. Prior to coming here, I spoke with Lee, who did say there are approximately 400 people still without power, and they're diligently working on that. But we are a warming station for people. And the community center is open. We did sustain some damage. We lost a window. And I wanted to say thank you to the highway department, specifically Sean, Libby, and Eric Eldridge, who came out to repair that on very late into Friday evening during what was a very, very busy time for them. So I just wanted to let everyone know. Thanks.
Thank you, Carolyn.
I have a question.
Sure.
Actually, Carolyn, I have a question for you. I'm sorry. On my landline, which nobody really knows that number, it's just one of those that comes with Comcast, I got a call at like 10:30 at night on Friday, I think it was, from Seaside Alarms. I think it was Seaside Alarms, about the community center. And I didn't know if it was because I'm a neighbor, or if it was they had the wrong phone number, or maybe because I'm Selectmen. I had no idea. Do you guys even use Seaside Alarms?
We use Seaside Alarm. In between Sean and I, we got calls. I think Sean will say his was every 20 minutes. Mine was about every 2 hours. So I can't say why they called you, except maybe they thought you were closer. And no, I'm just kidding. I really don't know why. I can certainly check into it for you, but they
And
do
I'll
call us
That's
frequently.
okay, I'll call. You don't,
So.
I'm not gonna put it on your plate, but I just wondered if, like, neighbor, if
Nope,
you heard,
they-
anybody else you heard from.
Not at all. Usually if the alarms on the building are triggered in any way, and for those of you who don't know, if you shake the doors really hard at the community center, they assume that someone's trying to get in. Well, those winds were shaking it so hard that they kept going off. So anything like that would have triggered it. So we did have several calls.
Thank you.
Sorry. But I'll give you the key next time. You can run over and just...
I was in bed, I heard the answering machine go off.
Anyone else for weekly briefing? Public comment and announcement?
Good evening, Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. Wanted to let everyone know that March 15th is the second annual job fair at the Monomoy Regional High School. We're doing, once again, it is 2:30 to 6. All ages are welcome for full-time, part-time, year-round, or seasonal. And if you also are a business in Harwich that would like to participate, we still have some room for tables.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Mike, I don't know if you want to bring up at this, obviously with the storm, the budget meeting on Saturday morning was canceled.
What was that? Sorry?
The budget meeting
Yes.
on Saturday was
Yep.
canceled,
Go ahead.
and I think, if the board wants to keep the same schedule, we could do it this Saturday, but folks that we're planning on, I know that you and I were in communication, and the meeting was canceled, so we didn't have people try to come out and make it into the, kind of nasty weather. But if the board wanted to reschedule that, just where it's early in the meeting, people may, if they have an interest in attending, if the board wanted to reschedule that for this coming Saturday, that would probably make some sense.
No, Janelle had a conflict, right?
Mhm.
Don, are you available? Larry?
I have a conflict I can probably get out of, that would be I'd rather not, but I'll give this priority, that's what the decision is.
Me too. I can try to figure that out, but...
I mean, the only other
We
option.
can't delay it too long, I guess.
No.
because-
Yeah, I mean, the only other option is if you wanted to try to meet on like Thursday night, and then, but I thought when we tried to look at Thursday night before, that was an issue.
I thought we were doing it last Thursday.
That was this Thursday, just on Jack,
I think that from the finance committee point of view, I see no reason why Saturday wouldn't work. And if we have to fill in a few here and there afterwards, something like that, that's okay.
What, Friday
But,
afternoon?
we should try to catch up, is my point of view.
We can make it work.
it's up to you. I know, well, that I'll fight.
I'm good.
Can we try and make it work? I mean, if finance committee, unfortunately, we gotta try and make this work for two committees, so, and we are running out of time, and I don't see how the afternoon thing is gonna work, but.
Well, I was thinking this Thursday, sooner than Saturday was my thought.
I'll make Saturday work.
I'll try to figure out Saturday.
Even if you make part of it.
So we'll schedule for next Saturday, post for next Saturday?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got that, Jack, right? Saturday, same hours, same schedule?
Same schedule, just next Saturday.
Ed?
Ed McManus, I'm here on behalf of the Harwich Cranberry Festival, and after you spend a fun day at the budget meeting on Saturday night, we're hosting a band, Runa, at the Harwich Cultural Center. It starts at 7 o'clock. Runa is a traditional Celtic band, won many national and international awards. It'll be a good show.
Great, thank you, Ed. Anyone else for public comment and announcement?
Mr. Chair, before you go on,
After new business per the Attorney General.
seriously, it's
I
an
know.
existing policy.
I know. It's not anticipated, it's not on the agenda. Right?
No, all you're doing is highlighting a policy that exists.
We'll bring that up. Anyone else for public comment and announcement? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Larry, please hold C.
Mr. Chairman, I move the following consent agenda items with that comment. A, approve minutes, February 12, 2018, regular session. Second part of that is February 20, 2018, regular session. B, approve request for one-day entertainment license for the Commodore Inn for June 2nd, 2018.
Do it under discussion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve consent agenda A and B. Any discussion? Don?
Yeah, if it remains as part of that motion, I'm gonna have to vote against it. If it
All
gets
right.
sheared off, then this is something I do every single time, because I still feel that it's important enough to have people be able to comment on it, and not on the consent agenda.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then I'll,
Actually, before you start on this, Chris, what's the, can you just explain this? I don't actually know what we're voting on. There's not a whole lot of information in this packet on this, and I believe it's under the 50,000 mark, so I'm not sure what the board is voting on.
Yeah, that's, actually, when I saw that, Mr. Chairman, technically it is over 50,000, it's like 52,000, but with a credit, energy credit, it falls below. So I didn't want to be too cute, and I know that the rule is 50,000 for contracts. Officially, it's over 50,000. It is an energy program that we have, Rise Engineering has gone through to look at different elements, and he has a split system as a new system that he can install for the, into the Harwich Fire Station. And he was looking for, he being Sean Libby, was looking to do some of this energy saving element work. He too thought that because the net was below 50,000 that I could authorize it, but I wasn't comfortable doing that, so I wanted to make sure the board had an opportunity to look. But it's an energy efficient installation of HVAC equipment.
is it a, what we call it in the home, mini split? It's the same thing?
I believe that's the case.
So there's no contract documents in here, Chris, nothing signed by the finance director, nothing signed by you?
I thought there was a, in the signature folder,
Maybe in the signature folder.
because I think we did at the last minute. We put that in and with all the storm activity, but I think he did go out and get the, our contract forms.
Larry, go ahead and read that motion. Go ahead,
I
Julie.
just have one question on this. Is this something that, if we become a stretch code community and the green community deal, we could get a defray the cost of this?
I think that there'll be plenty of
Other opportunities?
opportunities as we move forward. I'd hate to wait a year and a half to do this work.
Okay.
With that, I move consent agenda item C, which is to approve the split system AC proposal from Rise Engineering for Harwich Fire Station and authorize chair to sign.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve consent agenda item C. Any discussion?
I just have one thing. Going forward, I don't see any reason why, I mean, I appreciate that you wanted to point out what the actual cost was, Chris, but going forward, I don't see any reason why you would need a board vote when you, even if you have an incentive that brings it below 50,000. And I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about that. I'll certainly vote for it, but I just feel like,
I was just trying to follow the board's policy. Anything under 50 or under is my authority, but here, because it was a credit, it's 53, so it was over. But I'm
so maybe
fine,
that's a
I'm
new
fine if
policy
the,
we should make, if there's some sort of incentive that brings the cost below 50, or can we just kind of agree that it's okay? Or no, you would disagree with me?
I disagree, and
Okay.
I'll let Don carry the water on this one.
Mr. Chair? Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of it was to come up with signature authority for the cost of the work, not for the net payment. I mean, so if you wind up with something that buys it down somewhat, the complexity of the project is still about 50,000. And the board voted a policy that they didn't delegate that signature authority.
I see. Well, I've worked with Rise before, and it really, I mean, I think it's, their whole premise is to discount it. That's part of what they do, so
Okay.
that's why I thought.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. All right, moving on to public hearing and presentations. Housing Assistance Corporation, Big Fix, welcome. Welcome back. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having us, although I wasn't here the first time, but Laura Reckford came, and she apologizes for not being here, so I'm in her place. My name is Ann Van Vleck. I am a Chatham resident. I'm the Chief Development Officer at the Housing Assistance Corporation, and you know David. He's on the Housing Development team there at HAC. Good evening, members of the board. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. So we are updating you from the presentation last July. And just as a reminder, I just want to give a little background on Housing Assistance Corporation. We're a 43-year-old agency. We're a 501c3. We serve all 15 towns of the Cape and the islands, so including the Vineyard and Nantucket, programs and services providing safe, stable housing for people in need. Last year, particularly in Harwich, we served over 170 households in Harwich. That includes home ownership and counseling, rental assistance, homeless prevention, and energy conservation and improvements. So all really important work happening here in Harwich. So I am here officially to announce the date of the Big Fix in Harwich this year as Saturday, September 22nd. We are incredibly excited to come and have an impact here in your town, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to help so many people. This will be the 9th year of this event, so we have gone to numerous towns around the Cape for the last 8 years. And again, just a reminder about the Big Fix itself. It's focused on helping income-eligible residents here in Harwich in need. So they may be seniors, disabled, veterans. They may check more than one of those categories. And we have volunteers who come and improve their home and get those jobs done that they can't quite get to anymore. It's a small home repair and yard work for that day. It's a 4-hour event. And we also have a fundraising component of the event. So it's really a way to support the ongoing work of Housing Assistance Corporation. So it's really two-pronged in terms of helping Harwich residents here and projects that they need, and also how we can help continue the work of Housing Assistance Corporation, help people Cape-wide throughout the year. So we are looking for team leaders to help rally volunteers. We're hoping, we are looking for sponsors. We're looking for the business community to get involved, and anyone who wants to help out, volunteers, anyone to be a part of this incredibly important and special day. Since Laura and David were last here, we had a really successful event in Falmouth. We fixed over 15 homes, hundreds of volunteers took part, and it was a really great event. Jamie, if you don't mind, we have a video to show last year's success.
Great.
Absolutely. Helps us just as much as it helps them.
Today we're helping a veteran out at his home.
Because it's helping our community.
It's good to get our help. Feels good.
Doing our part. It's a terrific thing.
This is an amazing undertaking. We have 19 homes in the Falmouth region. There are veterans, seniors, people living with disabilities that basically have that punch list that can never get done. That's the sweet spot of Big Fix, and that's what the Big Fix does for us. The Big Fix came to my house 2 years ago, so it was time to give back. And so it's been a great day for us today. Well worthwhile.
Without this, as the expression goes, I don't know where that would be. Because these people, the way they're acting, I thought they lived next door and knew me all my life. All they say is, what else can we do for you? What else can we do? Yeah, I served in the Army in Korea.
She called me up and she said, Tina, they're going to come and work on your house. I did fit all 3 criteria. The senior, the disabled, and the military. They're doing an amazing job.
We're part of Mashpee Troop 36, Boy Scouts.
Where?
Mowing lawns, fixing houses, getting
better than it did before.
It's gonna look beautiful. Fulfilled.
Neighbors, helping neighbors, giving back.
The service above self. We actually took down a whole tree.
I was kind of blown away.
Incredible gratitude, humble, awesome.
It's rewarding to help people.
Great program.
Isn't that amazing? It's hard to watch the video without, getting emotions stirred. It's an amazing day. And I have to say, two of my sons worked on one of the houses. And so you can see families, you see the Boy Scouts, you see people who were served and had their houses fixed who come back to fix. I mean, it is an amazing community event. So we're really excited to come to Harwich. David.
Yeah, again, very, very excited. Falmouth was actually my first big fix since I started at Hack, and it was a huge undertaking, as you can imagine, which is why we're getting started so early with the planning. So I just wanted to quickly go over sort of the logistics of what to expect over the next couple of months. So this is sort of our big unveiling. The application is going live tomorrow. So we're going to be working hard to get the word out to find as many Harwich residents as we can that need this type of help. So if you know anyone, have anyone in mind, please pass along the information. The application is going to be on our website, which is HAC, so HAC, on capecod.org. We hope to also get a link on the town website, so it'll be posted there. And we'll be distributing hard copies of the application throughout town. So it'll be at Town Hall, the Senior Center, Community Center, any other location around town that we feel like we can get the word out. So applications go out tomorrow, and we'll be taking applications all the way up through June 1st. And at that point, we'll take in all the applications. In Falmouth, we had 65 applications. So the difficult part for us is trying to go through all of the applications and really try to figure out combination of need, who has the most need, and then also pairing that with the resources that we have available to actually get the work done. So that includes the supplies, the volunteers, skilled volunteers, and regular volunteers. But we aim for between 10 and 15 houses every year, so that's our goal. So we hope to get a lot of applications. After that, we conduct a house visit with all of the people who are selected. We kind of have 2 rounds of selection. We kind of do a first vetting, and then we actually go out and visit all of the houses that were initially selected and actually go see the houses, meet with the homeowner, get a sense for what type of work they need to get done. Sometimes we show up and they might have said that they needed yard work, and we get there and we realize that there's a railing or a handicap ramp, or they might need some roofing, and so we actually can work with them and try to figure out what the full list of needs is. Another big part of the process for us in making this event successful is just the partnership with the town. A huge part of all of the towns that we've worked with has been that working hand in hand with all of the different department heads, Public Works helping with doing dump runs, police details, so the police department helping out fire, the building department as well. So as we get more involved in the planning, we'll be reaching out again and potentially requesting some assistance from some town staff through the town administrator to help coordinate some of the logistics of that day, because it is a huge event with several hundred people being dispersed around town. We usually meet in one location at a local school, have a big community event in the morning and a breakfast, and then disperse to all the locations throughout town. So we also sometimes ask towns, or typically ask towns, if they'd be willing to waive some of the fees associated with the transfer station or building permits. Obviously, that's not something we know exactly what we're going to need until we have selected the houses, but that's something that we may also be coming back with in terms of resources from the town to help with this event. So overall, we're really excited, and it's going to be a long spring and summer of planning to get all the applications in, and we're looking forward to a really great event in the fall. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. So other than the Chronicle and the Cotter that are here tonight, you doing this presentation, us putting it on the website,
Right.
I think the video, the description of the event, and the application, what can we as a town do? Who can be involved in getting these people to you? And what have other towns done? I mean, Falmouth obviously was very successful in
Right.
seeing the application. So how do we get that out there to the most needed people?
I think a big part of it is communicating. Romy on David's staff will be sort of the on the ground resource from Housing Assistance Corporation. And she'll be going to the senior center and the community center and making those connections. And then I think from there they can post on their newsletters, they can do social media. A lot of these people, because of the criteria, aren't going online and they're not seeing it as much online. So we do have a lot of the hard copies at those places. So we will be getting the word out. We also put it in our newsletter, and so it feels like it's a lot of news at once, hopefully, to get the word out. And word of mouth, too, I think can be really helpful.
One thing that really helped last year is we had, I think it was the senior center sent out a robocall of some type to their clients, and that got a lot of people interested, who maybe wouldn't have seen it on Facebook or social media. So that was a huge help.
Great. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Richard Waystack. I'm the chair of the Board of Assessors, and we have a list of people that we assist through the 41C senior tax exemption, people who are low income. We also have a list of our veterans exemptions that we provide, and we have another list of folks who are financially in difficult shape that we can provide the list if the town would allow through the town administrator to make that available, to send a mailing out to those people who we know have certain issues that they would need some assistance. So we'd be happy to help them, the Board of Assessors, through, of course, you, Mr. Chairman, your board, and the town administrator.
Thank you, Richard. And Jack will make the Council on Aging available as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
One more question on the we have to beat Falmouth, so we need to make a much bigger event than Falmouth. So prepare now is good.
Yeah, next year's video will be
much better.
Yes.
So the volunteers, who do they call? I mean, how do we start to get our volunteer list together, and who do these people that are listening tonight and that will read it in the papers tomorrow, who do they call to volunteer?
So they can go to our website, which is, you have hackoncapecod.org. And we really are looking definitely for volunteers, for people who want a little more responsibility or challenge. That team leader role will be really great. And what we'll be asking those people to do is to help recruit volunteers and also to help recruit people to fundraise. It's sort of like a walkathon. They can raise pledges over a course of time, and then we'll have contests, and we're going to really try to create some buzz in town, have some kickoffs, maybe some pizza parties for the office that raises the most money kind of thing. So we would love to hear from people who want to be team leaders who can help us really create the infrastructure. Volunteers can absolutely go on to the HACK website. There's also an email, volunteer@hackoncapecod.org, and they can reach out to our volunteer coordinator, Mary. So a lot of ways to get involved, for people who do want to come, and there's so many options for participation.
My last question, then I'll open it up.
Sure.
The person in town, I mean, do you find in Falmouth or any of the other towns, do you have somebody in each town other than the town administrator that spearheads this? Is there somebody that helps organize it on the town side, or does that come later?
That is something that we're thinking about in terms of this team leader concept. This is, and I think it would be really great to have sort of an honorary chair of the event in the town. And
We have 4 team leaders in the room: Richard, Ed,
Perfect.
Jack, and Cindy. So I mean, we got off to a great
Mr. Chairman,
start.
you're
Yeah, we're
speaking
off to a great start.
my language. No, that's fabulous.
Cindy.
So I was speaking out before the meeting with Ann and David, and the chamber will, of course, be doing mailings excuse me, on this, because we have all of our great businesses in town, and I have some great lists in my head already. Richard, of course, was number 1, but he already was volunteered. But we will be jumping forward with this as well. So Ann and I will get together and move forward with that.
Thank you. Janelle?
I have a logistics question. So last year, it was on the weekend of our Cranberry Harvest Festival, and so I did not go to Falmouth because I stayed in Harwich. So Ed, I'm asking you, what is Cranberry Harvest Festival this year? The week before. Okay, so
We
it's
made
not.
sure to check. That was the
You
number one
did.
thing
We
were told,
actually,
yes.
Janelle, David and I talked about that, and we specifically made sure it was after Cranberry Festival.
Yes.
Super. So we have lots of things to do in September.
Absolutely.
And I also spoke with Cindy because at the existing Big Fix is when there's the passing of the hammer, we call it,
Oh.
for the next town's Big Fix. And because you all were obviously occupied, I suggested to Cindy that we do a redo and sort of do a kickoff and have sort of a photo op and a press release and make a big splash. And we could even have a fun kickoff gathering around that. And
Bigger and better than Falmouth.
What is it with Falmouth?
Wow.
They're the biggest, and we're going to be the biggest. Don?
I'm not sure you want to trust us with that. Jack seems to think that the two of us together could be one coordinator, right? You're not pointing just at me. It is a great program. I'd be willing to help.
We're counting on it, so.
Yeah, me too.
Janelle, go ahead, one more.
I just have one more question. You said there's a breakfast kind of kickoff
Yeah.
for all the volunteers. Is that something that you would look like for our town chef to provide the breakfast at the community center maybe? Or are you looking for a local business? What did Falmouth do?
In years past, it's been, we've gotten local businesses, so we've had Whole Foods has been, I believe Whole Foods was last year, did all the breakfast food. Donated, and then we had a lunch after that was the 99 restaurant, and they've done it for a number of years. So
All donated.
Yeah, so they've been big sponsors as well.
So we have an events coordinator who, she's amazing, Deanna, and she handles all those logistics. So if you have ideas or if I can point her directly to you for some conversation, then that would be great, and that would be a good way to help, because I think it would be nice being in Harwich to have it be some Harwich businesses, but we wouldn't ever want anyone to feel expected, especially since we have the existing relationships. So we can absolutely talk if you have some ideas.
I would be willing to volunteer as that go-to person since I will no longer be on the board.
Done.
If you, done, okay.
Okay, great.
If you're okay with that, I would, and Ed's busy. Jack will still be on the finance committee, and Richard has way too much on his plate already, right? I'm looking for more to do now,
Okay,
now that I
great.
won't be doing
Love it.
this.
Great, thank you.
Julie?
No, I think it's a fantastic event. I was just looking at, in terms of sponsors, Deanna's the person to organize it with. But the other question I have is, when you were saying about fundraising, will there be multiple fundraising events like throughout the summer leading up to September?
So this will be new for us this year in terms, last year we did start the Fix-a-thon component, but we started a little bit late. And so this year we want to change it up a little bit. So we were thinking of, some maybe May, June, July, and doing some gatherings of people and sort of that rah-rah, getting excited for the Big Fix and getting people motivated and excited about it. So
I
that's
think
what we were
that's
thinking about.
No, I think that's great, and I'm happy to help with you, Janelle.
Okay.
I also think another great resource to get people involved is through the high school, through MRHS and their Friday Focus, and kids are always looking to, do their extra credit and that kind of stuff. So I think they would be another good resource for you. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great event. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Good, we are
Larry?
too.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity to work with you on this.
Yeah.
We look forward to it.
Likewise. yeah.
Excited.
Chris, on the component of the fees, dump fees and building fees, can you start some work on that, see what we need to do if?
Yeah, I think once they identify the projects, they can let us know. We do have a policy with the board that some of the building permits are waived. Any inspection that we have to pay the people no matter what, that doesn't get waived. But
Okay.
anything that can be waived, we will waive.
Okay,
Great,
great.
thank you.
Once you identify what you want to do, just let me know.
Yeah, I can send you sort of our general list of what typically, the big thing is dump fees, because we're having, it's a ton of brush and debris and occasionally appliances and that sort of thing, but I'll definitely be in touch with that list.
Great, thank you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks
Thank
again.
you. Thank you so much.
Next up is budget and warrant discussion. Budget, I anticipated that there would have been a budget hearing prior to this meeting, but I will start with budget anyway, if anyone has any general questions on the board that we can, in general conversation to Chris before we get into the warrant.
No.
Julie,
Oh, wait.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
budget, anything on the budget? I put this on anticipating that we were
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
talk about it Saturday.
Right.
because we didn't, but I'll still entertain any questions for Chris on the budget or comments, or
I'll wait till after the meeting.
Don?
The same.
Same. Chris, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine. Just so the board's aware, I think what I'm going to do is the practice that I've done in the past. I know we made a couple of, I made a couple of errors, if you would. We cut a few things that we shouldn't have cut. So we will do like budget amendment, so we'll show all the adjustments that we're going to make, where we have to put back in, where we're going to find the revenue to, or make the necessary cuts to balance it out. And then whatever comes out of next Saturday, we can certainly look at that and we'll make that adjustment. But we'll try to do budget amendment 1 and 2. I think historically, we usually do about 1 or 2 for between now and town meeting. So that way it could be trued up, so people will see according to the budget message and then what evolutions have occurred.
So Chris, specifically, I guess for me, I've got several issues with the budget. I think first issue is we asked for 2%, it came in at 7.2%. One of the things that came out of the discussions I had with Carol on that was cost of the debt. New debt coming on, which based on the numbers that I got was about I think it was 2.8 million, plus the old debt. The 2.8 million, I guess, would be the new debt coming on, and I'm still trying to grapple with the 7.2% increase. Specifically, I think for me, the IT position, I think that this board, and I guess I'm looking at you to tell me time frame on when you're going to want this debate to happen. Specifically on IT, you're making a recommendation to fill the IT position, but not fill some other positions or not do other board priorities. So IT being one, the school capital, I'm still really uncomfortable with putting 220, or I'm hearing now 260,000 in school capital, 130,000 of which is the restrooms at the track, which we told the taxpayers that they would not be burdened with that, but now we're voting to put it on the warrant. We're being asked to vote to put it on the warrant for their vote, and I think that should be, my own opinion, a capital exclusion, and let the voters actually decide if they want to pay that, rather than pay it out of our free cash. I'm also concerned with the $50,000 stabilization number in that. Not saying that the school doesn't need the stabilization, I'm just saying that I don't think our free cash should support that when they're coming in with, if you add their capital and you add their budget, they're coming in with a 5% ask on a $25 million budget. So I guess, and then the vehicle, the deputy fire chief, Heinz, the natural resource vehicle, the two that were added after capital outlay, and I guess I understand why. But I'm having a hard time going back to the taxpayers with a 7.2% increase and a $30 million ask with wastewater in the fire station. So I've got some concerns with the budget, and I guess I want to know when you want to have these discussions so that it's not the day before you're being asked to post the budget.
Yeah, I think most likely what makes the most sense would be to have some of this discussion on the Saturday session. Certainly IT Foster is prepared to be there. The deputy fire chief or the fire chief will be there for the vehicle. I will check with Heinz to see if he's available. Deputy fire chief, I mean, that one kind of came up where the vehicle was in bad shape and it continues to deteriorate. So, I mean, that's something that is more. The schools, we did not invite the schools to a separate session, so I don't know if that's one where afterwards, if you want to have a discussion on those topics, the board may want to, as a follow-up to the budget schedule on Saturday, do a follow-up one with the schools to talk about those. But we can certainly have people there to kind of answer the questions. In terms of the board's priority, you know, I mean, the board had a lot of different priorities, and there's only so many dollars to go around. So I do my best to pick what the biggest need is. In my mind, the IT was the biggest need, because we have one person, and that's too small.
I appreciate the people that you're saying can be there. I'm not actually concerned, I think, with, at this late in the game, really their argument on having the vehicle. I think, for me as a board member, looking at our auto list and 190 vehicles in the town, I think this board actually has to get to a point where it says no, or you get to a point where you say no, and I'm not sure that, or the voters get to a point where they say no. So I guess, you know, my own thought would be capital or debt exclusions on some of this stuff.
And just in terms of the saying no, I mean, I put it in my budget message. I said no to $1 million worth of requests. So I have no problem saying no. By the same token, I think it's important that I present a budget that has a functional government, that we provide some level of services. And, you know, the question is, how can we expand and go beyond those? I know that there was a real interest, and I did not put in for Sunday to have the community center open and to have it open on those other days. And I did say to the board, you know, if it's $25,000, you know, I'm happy to go back and look and come up with that. If it's $250,000, you know, that's a different endeavor. So, you know, I am open to, if the board wants to set some additional priorities. I know that IT, I thought, was a high priority of the organization, and certainly this board. But, you know, there is a certain amount of money that goes around, and I was trying to do that. But I don't want the general public to think that every request that was made was honored.
No, I think
That's really not the case.
I appreciate the 1 million, but in a $65 million budget, the 1 million in no's, I think, is just not doing it. I just want to be clear that I don't want this to be a 24th hour conversation and a heated debate. I'm telling you now that if I have to vote on this budget with the few things that I've mentioned without diving into the details, I have to vote no on. I can't support the budget that was brought forward to us the way it was brought forward to us. Don?
Yep. Yeah, I tend to agree with the chair about the debt exclusion for some of these things, because it's really up to the people in my mind. Now, if we have some free cash, the one thing that occurs to me, like with something like the Sunday opening, it's not a continuing operating expense to the extent that you're making a commitment that once you start it, you will never ever do anything but that. You could kill it off if you didn't have the money. I don't see a problem, you know, spending free cash to do that as a thing, with the understanding that it's just a fix for the time being. But overall, I mean, most people when they open up their tax bill, they don't parse it out and say, okay, I'm paying this for the wastewater, I'm paying this for you know, police cars. They get a hit, and the hit's been pretty big, and it's going to get bigger to the point where it's really difficult to be able to afford staying here. I'm fairly certain by the time you get to next year, you'll be seeing insurance premiums go up too because of wind damage. So,
I guess, Chris, just to summarize that, are you saying that we would rather start this process on Saturday rather than start to tick things off tonight?
It's up to the board. I thought that the board, I mean, unfortunately with the storm, I thought that we would have that discussion tonight, but I think it makes sense to have the departments go through and identify what their needs are, and then for you guys to do what I've done, and I've met with every department to go through what their needs and their budget. And I think it just serves to have both, you know, this board and the finance committee be able to hear some of that, what I heard.
Okay. Janelle?
Well, I wish I could be there for the discussions, but on the other hand, I think you guys would do a good job, and I'll look forward to next Monday, seeing what happened.
Okay. Julie?
Well, I mean, I feel better once we go through this process and go through the departments and see what people can really live with and live without. I think we need to look hard and fast at it. I also think we need to look at the fact that, you know, we have certain things we're already committed to in terms of increases in wages. We have OPEB's, you know, increases. We have capital expenses that we knew were coming. And so I think we have to look logistically at all of those things and see what we can afford to do. You know, I don't know if you know, our 2 or 3% was realistic, considering all those things that we've got on our plate. And to try, to Chris's point, to provide the proper services to the town is obviously of the utmost importance. I just think we need to weigh all those pieces, and I'll feel better after having looked and heard from the departments.
Okay. Larry?
Yeah, I would agree. We have a major discussion on Saturday. I think, Michael, your point is almost more of a heads up of what the issues may be on Saturday. And you've mentioned some. I have one that's relatively simple, but the DPW is after 3 dump trucks. My question is going to be, do we need all 3 at once? Can we spread that over time to give us a little freedom? It's not a lot of money, but I think that's also with our other vehicles. Need to check that for those. I've said this before, so I'm repeating myself, but I would not vote for the, IT is a top priority for us, because if we talk about efficiencies, that's maybe our biggest area that we can add some efficiencies and keep money down. I'm not comfortable with what was presented to us so far with IT, because it's basically adding a person to do more of the same. I really, before I move ahead, and maybe heads up to Foster and you guys, but I would like to know, how we're going to do, what is our IT plan to bring in software and hardware, more consistency across all departments, including the water department? What's our vision on that to work now as we try to get stronger into what our website looks like? And with those issues, and I want to do it, but I don't have that framework right now to move ahead with it.
Thank you, Larry.
I think that our committee is going to have a number of questions on Saturday, and I think that'll only be our first bite of the apple. We're going to probably want to have some further discussions on a few topics and a few people. I think right now, from what I can tell, the committee is interested in staffing. It's seriously interested in overtime. It's seriously thinking about vehicles, which is a major issue, and we all know that, but we have to figure out what we can afford and what we may not have to defer. Make sure we have a good understanding about the school budget and what more they can do to get more down the pike on their budget than we've seen. And I think that the other thing will be the stabilization, the OPEB, that sort of thing, to really get clear about what we're going to do, which partially is a policy issue, I think, on the part of the board, because I think you folks need to make sure you're in agreement, at least 3-2 vote, that you're in agreement on what we should be doing on those 2 topics. Because I think it hasn't been clear to me that we really have an aligned strategy or plan of attack, whatever word you want to use, on those areas. Crispin's working, I think, hard on it, trying to come up with the right answers, but I think you could be helpful in framing the issues on that one. And I think there's going to be a discussion about the 2% that the board said was the message that they wanted to get out to the troops and the leaders of departments and all that. We're a long ways from 2%, we all know it. But the question is, what can, if anything, we do about it collectively? This is not Chris's problem. Okay, it's not department head Z or A. It's a problem we've got to confront. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. See you Saturday. Julie?
One other piece back to your point on the IT that I think ties in to when Carol was in front of us with the audit, is that our risk assessment, we also need to look at our IT in terms of that has to factor in, because that's just another piece of our risk. And we really do need to overhaul our IT. So I agree with you. I think we need to look hard and fast at what we need, because I don't think it's something we can continue to table, but I think we need to make sure we're covering all the various pieces that we have.
Great. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in agreement with both of your comments. The only troubling thing to me is that the generic term IT, we're going to create an IT position. I'd like to see a position description, because if it's just foster phase 2, because the dilemma you've got is that everybody keeps lumping into IT 3 disparate things. I mean, a webmaster isn't an IT person necessarily. An information person is not necessarily a wires and box person. So I mean, just saying we need an IT person doesn't really cut it. What's the charge? Where are you going to go with this?
Okay. Moving on to the warrant. it's okay with the board, I'd like to start the process of what we did last year and kind of try and vote certain articles into the warrant so that we're not doing it all last minute. I think any articles that anyone's uncomfortable when we get to it and you want to have a lengthy discussion, we'll just pass over it. Vote the ones we know we're going to put on there, and then we'll have that list done anyway.
Okay.
So Larry, unfortunately, this, I think, starts some reading for you. But
I'm happy to go through, and then if there's individual questions, and could knock them off easy if you want me to do it.
that's,
Mr. Chair, I have one question I'd like to bring up, because even though it's more detailed, rather than just go through it, if I may.
Sure.
And that's because, and I'll point to Don as being our charter expert, but I look at the housing trust, and it caught my attention because of two items. We agreed to have a selectman on there, and it has a 2-year term. And actually, it caught my attention, we always have 3-year terms, and this is a 2-year term. So I went back and looked at the state charge on the housing trust, what their requirements are, and they require that it's it doesn't exceed a 2-year term. They also require that a member of the executive body, and then they define as selectman, be on the housing trust committee. So that makes sense. The reason I wanted to bring up for discussion is that obviously violates our own charter, in which a selectman can't be on an internal committee.
it doesn't actually. And
Okay.
Chris did
Yeah,
a
we
legal
had
opinion
that
on this.
researched, and the attorney said that it's kind of interesting that some statutes, the charter
the
trumps
state-
some, and others it doesn't.
And this overrides.
And this one,
the
the special one is.
So that's, I just want to be sure we didn't leave that to the last moment and get in the trouble.
No, we did get the legal opinion, and it's been
Okay.
used in other towns as well.
Okay. With that, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Okay.
So Chris, do you want to
Yeah,
start?
I mean, I'm happy to take a stab, Mr. Chairman, just to see if we can work our way through it.
And then just to be clear, when we vote to accept and adopt, we are also, when the motion gets made to accept and adopt, we are including that in the warrant. We're voting to accept and adopt and include in the warrant, but we don't have to say and include in the warrant like we did last year. So it doesn't have to be 2 votes. By accepting and adopting, unless a board member disagrees, we are including it in the warrant.
And
So-
just so, for record keeping, is it also that you support it?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Or not? I mean, obviously, accept and adopt means that you want it on the warrant, you don't want to take it off the warrant.
Imagine if we don't accept and adopt it, we're not supporting it.
I thought last year we did
It's
endorse.
inclusion is separate from
Endorse
whether
or
you're
not,
endorsing.
yeah.
Endorsing it last year, saying certain ones we
I
said
didn't
we
know if
also
there were
endorsed.
certain easy ones that you want to also include endorsement, and other ones that you want to hold
Yeah.
for discussion, but you want to, like the town budget, I don't think we have all the information yet for the town budget, so that one, you want to have it on the warrant, I would assume, but the number is to be
Right.
determined.
Right.
Just as a for instance.
But that's what I thought we did last year. We picked certain ones that we were endorsing and
inclusion
others
vote.
we weren't.
Right.
So we're endorsing one that is going to be on the warrant, then later we'll decide whether we support the actual wording of it.
Oh, we're
That
accepting
would,
and
my
adopting.
And we'll
suggestion
accept and
would be,
adopt if we agree to the actual wording.
right.
Right.
I mean, there's some that you may want to just knock off the
Oh, I think
wording
so.
and get that
Let's go
squared
for it.
away.
Yeah.
So it is 2 votes then,
2 votes.
the endorsement,
Well, no, if we accept and adopt, it'd be 1
It's
vote.
different than 3.
because that means we endorse it? No, it
No.
doesn't.
No, if we accept and adopt it, it's going on the
It's
warrant.
gone.
Right.
It puts it on the warrant because we control the warrant.
That's right.
It-
And
To
the
the extent that it's
endorsements
not any
The
petition
endorsement
article.
is saying that we want
Comes
to put
later.
that item
Yeah, I
on,
guess
and then we
that
can
comes
accept
Hey,
it.
Mr. Chairman, just,
Comes later, I think.
I mean, you've had now an opportunity, there's one additional item that I put on. Again, these are items that are for discussion. Maybe the accept and adopt, if you're comfortable with the warrant that's been presented, that these are the items that would be presented to town meeting, do one universal vote for accept and adopt. If there's 1 or 2 you want to take out, then take them out, and then start going through to see whether you endorse or don't endorse, whatever the
I
terminology
don't know,
is.
I just know we did that last year.
Okay.
Okay, go for it.
The only one that I added, and I will say, I had a resident come in, and so this is obviously, and I told the resident that, is on Article 45, under land issues, that I had been approached, I don't think Richard is still here, but I had been approached by both Harwich Conservation Trust and the Council on Aging that there was a lady in the community that owns property on 31 and 33 Lakeview Drive. And the research that we did as part of Judah Eldridge gave different options that are available. She is destitute and is in now affordable housing in the town. She has 2 parcels that the back taxes owed are greater than the value of the parcels. So there is a mechanism in the law to have deeds accepted in lieu of foreclosure. So I identified those 2 and at least thought it'd be worthy of having a discussion. So I did draft that up and put that on for the board.
Okay.
But that's the only one that was added.
Okay.
To my knowledge. So if the board's okay, I mean, do you want to vote the entire package and then we can go through each individual one for the items, or are there items? I know last week we took off the 40-year lease option. That has been taken off.
Because I think we should just go through and do them one by one.
Yeah, because there's some wording and such.
Well, I would hesitate on the wording, that bond counsel needs to look at the finance ones, which we're sending those off to get bond counsel to look at, and the town attorney has already looked. So if,
Well, the one about the harbor grant says vote to accept the grant.
We already accepted.
We already accepted the grant. We have to vote to how to utilize the grant.
Let's go through
go
one
through
by
it.
one. The
I
way we
just,
did-
if there's
same
too
way
much,
we did.
if we're gonna get into too much verbiage, it may be changed by the town attorney. That's all my point is. So on, number 1 is the town officials.
So, who wants to make the motions?
I'll move that we accept Article 1 to choose various town officials and committees.
Second.
Move to accept and adopt.
Okay, moved and seconded to accept and adopt Article 1. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move we accept and adopt reports of the town officers and committees, which is Article 2.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept and adopt Article 2. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I move we accept and adopt Article 3, which is elected officials' salaries.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept and adopt Article 3. Any discussion? Chris, does the town clerk represent the number that is that the number that you guys came
Yeah,
up with?
no, actually, on this, again, I think accept and adopt for having it on the warrant is one thing. She has requested, and administration agrees, that should be increased. So the content is something that you want to look at. The second part is the selectmen's pay and the moderator and the water commissioners. I know FinCom has a recommendation to go above these numbers. So I think
So
that
accept
may
and
be
adopt to
something.
include in the warrant pending final numbers. Is that what your motion was?
That's it.
That's
That
my
what your
second.
second was?
Yep.
Okay.
Joe
All in
was.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 4, the town operating budget.
Same.
Same.
Same, depending on the final numbers, I
So
guess.
say,
I
I
move.
assume we accept and adopt Article 4 with the numbers to be finalized
Second.
later.
any discussion?
May I? Some of us in the back room are confused. I was thinking that our process has been, the last few years, is you agree to put it on the warrant, and then we'd all discuss it and argue about it and reach agreement on whether we support it or not.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing. This
That's what we're
doesn't-
doing. We're
This is for
accepting, adopting,
inclusion.
we're putting them on the warrant.
You're defining accept and adopt as putting it on the warrant.
That's right.
That's the definition you're using.
That's right.
Okay, because it is different than what I've done before. Those words are different.
We're in
It
agreement.
really is for inclusion, and we're going to wind up coming to convergence about what
Alright.
the content of the article.
Because we've not had a vigorous debate yet either, you
No,
know.
but this warrant is due. We have to put the warrant together, so.
I understand, Michael.
Yeah, we need the final version for next week is what we have on the schedule. Technically, it's tonight, but next week.
Okay, we're through Article 4.
With that in mind,
All in
excuse
favor?
me, aye.
Here's-
Aye.
Aye, I'm sorry. I
All
thought,
right. Don, you're on that one?
I said,
Okay.
yeah.
Unanimous on that one.
With that in mind, I move we accept and adopt Article 5, Monomoy Regional School Budget District, pending or conditional on a final number.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve Article 5. Any discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Move we accept and adopt Article 6, Cape Cod Regional Technical School District Budget, also based on what the contingent on the final number.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept and adopt Article 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to make the same because I'm assuming water
Keep
budget
going.
will. Move we accept and adopt Article 7 water budget contingent on the final number.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve Article number
Seven.
Seven. Any discussion?
You
All
did
in
6
favor?
and 7.
Aye.
Aye.
Move we accept and adopt Article 8, adopt the capital plan.
Second.
Contingent.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, that's not.
This is
contingent.
pretty much set.
It's not in my, it says insert capital plan here.
Okay,
It's-
contingent on the insert.
It's in yours?
Yeah, we did have an updated version.
We had an updated
Okay.
version, so I think that's been voted on.
And we are only accepting and adopting, put it on the warrant, which we always put the capital plan on the warrant. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Accept and adopt Article 9, capital items funded from free cash, items under 50,000. And that also is contingent on the final number.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to accept and adopt Article 9 pending the final number. All in favor? Aye.
Move we accept and adopt Article 10, facility maintenance and repair fund contingent on the acceptance of the final number.
Second.
Moved
I
and
have a
sec-
question about this one.
Go ahead.
Do we have to accept and adopt with these numbers right now? I mean, with, with all 5 items right now? Because what if I don't agree with one of the items?
Pending final numbers mean if we vote not to support it, then it's out.
You can
Okay.
zero it.
Right,
All right.
Chris?
Well, I think if it's on there, yeah, absolutely, you can go through. If you're unhappy with whatever number 5, then we would just decrease the amount to vote with the acknowledgement that number 5 or whatever is not
Gotcha.
included.
So we can
Okay.
change it.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move we accept and adopt Article 11, fund snow and ice deficiencies for fiscal year 18, contingent on the final number.
Second.
Chris, is that final, that's the final number?
That's an estimate.
No, I
It's
mean,
just
we
an
won't
estimate.
know the final number until it stops snowing.
Okay.
Call us on Friday.
Any discussion?
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move we accept and adopt Article 12, fund the budget shortfalls and budget transfers for fiscal year 18,
Second.
contingent on the final number.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Move we accept and adopt Article 13, rescind amounts in long-term debt authorized by vote of the town for various purposes that are no longer needed.
Second.
That appears that may be final.
Yeah, I think that is final. If you wanted to vote, that's just to clear old information off the books.
Yep.
I
That was
think-
voted without a pending final, so
Right.
that's voted.
Just go for it.
But we haven't voted.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move we accept and adopt Article 14, construction of interconnection with Chatham and sewers in the southern section of Pleasant Bay watershed, contingent on the final number.
Julie seconded that.
Julie seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Move we accept and adopt Article 15, Dennis Harwich, Yarmouth Clean Waters Community Partnership.
Julie seconded that?
I was willing to second it.
No, you did.
There's no numbers
Wait a minute, who-
associated with this.
I
Number,
second.
Article 15.
Yep, so
That was
Larry
just-
made the motion, Julie seconded. Okay. Why don't we just keep it for paperwork purposes, Don, you second all the motions if you agree.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Now, this one,
I
though,
was
we
willing
have
to.
that meeting next week, right?
March
Saturday?
22nd.
22nd.
March
Oh, that
22nd.
meeting, sorry, yeah.
That will be the
Would that
focus
change
of the discussion. I don't think so. both attorneys from, actually, John Giorgio represents us and Dennis, and then Jay Tallerman from a different firm represents Yarmouth, so they've had a meeting of the minds, so this language is acceptable to the two attorneys.
Okay.
And this is to pass the legislation to make it so that we can do this partnership if we like.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move and accept and adopt Article 16, the Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Any
I'd
sec-
like to bring this back for further discussion.
Okay. 16's coming back, Chris.
It's not the number, is it? Put something in there.
90,000.
Thought we were gonna put 100.
17?
Move and accept and adopt Article 17, Lower County Road Project for fiscal year 18, contingent on the final numbers.
Second.
Chris, do we need to do contingent on the final number on this? Is this Water Department Enterprise Fund?
Yes, I think he is getting an updated
Okay.
bid.
Moved and seconded by Don. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I moved and seconded that.
Just, so we're gonna return to 16 and have a discussion, because we do need to
Right.
do a final warrant for next week, and I just,
Yeah.
that's the intent, is to
Yeah,
return
let's
to
rip
it.
through what we're gonna rip through, and then we'll come back
Gonna
to
come back,
16.
okay. Move and accept Article 18, repave access roads to well sites, contingent on the final number.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve Article 18. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to accept and adopt Articles 19, purchase utility trucks for the water department, contingent on the final number.
Second.
I'd say bring it back. We all just said we had a problem with vehicles, so did the Finance Committee,
Yeah.
so
Okay, bring that back.
after budget hearings,
So was that pending or not? Pending a number?
I
'Cause
guess
you can always have a
it's
number, you can
probably
always have a
that.
number be 0.
we could bring the number back as 0.
Yeah, I mean,
So
again, this is just whether you want to have a discussion about it or not,
We do want to have a discussion about it based on what everyone taled about during budget.
because
I would
next,
rather right now myself bring
because
it
we won't
back.
be able to make adjustments to the warrant, Saturday. I mean, Saturday is going to be quick.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little confused because the funding source in this is gonna be the Water Enterprise Fund, isn't it?
Correct.
That's the ratepayers. I mean, your original comments were related to the taxpayers. If these guys have raised money, not that we would approve everything that they ask always, but I mean, if these guys have raised money, that doesn't contribute to the conversation we were having at all.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're in support of it, right, Don?
Yeah, to the extent that it's the ratepayers that are, and it's the Water Department's enterprise fund that's funding it, not the tax
Correct.
base.
That's correct.
Well, there's been a motion, it's been seconded, so we
Okay.
should,
Any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
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 And I'll abstain.
Move to accept and adopt Article 20, reappropriation of bond proceeds, contingent on the final number.
Second.
It moved and seconded to approve Article 20, pending the final number. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ed?
Yeah, just a comment, I understand the process you're going through, but whether or not, like, the water department trucks are on the, contained on the warrant, after, we could have the discussion, could drip over into April, and at town meeting, we could collectively have agreed to put in a motion to indefinitely postpone if we decided it's not, you don't have to feel that you have to make this decision by finalizing the warrant next week.
Right, but if
You know,
definitively we understand that we
yeah.
don't want it on the warrant, we'd vote not to put it
Yeah,
on the warrant
yeah,
tonight. Right.
yeah.
That's why we're going through this exercise. But I agree.
Okay.
Thank you, Ed.
Let's see, did I just go through night,
We're on 21.
I'm on 20, right?
21.
21.
Wait, we didn't do the reappropriation of bond proceeds?
Yes,
Yes, we
we did.
did.
We just did it.
You just did
You
it.
voted aye.
Well, that's right, because
Move to accept and adopt Article 21, purchase and equipment vehicles for DPW. Now, this is one we had a bigger discussion on.
Yeah.
When Chris just said we can do pending final number and the number can be 0.
Right, you could do IP, just pass over it, that no recommendation for consideration.
Right.
But if you take it off,
It can't
then
come
you,
back.
we can't, it
Okay.
can't come back,
Right,
so.
So, why are we not just going forward with all of these?
All
but
of
just
these at that
saying
point.
That it
If we're-
pens the
That's
number?
why I made that suggestion.
I mean,
I'm
I
just
think
following the
right.
same
There was-
process we followed the last 2 years, so.
But-
Chris, I mean, am I wrong? We didn't do this last year and the year before?
Well, the board has, and the board has done individual ones. The only suggestion I was making is, if you know that you want to have a discussion on all of it, then just vote to have this be the warrant that we're going to go forward with, so that way we don't change numbers and things like that. But then the process, you have to figure out whether you're going to support it or not, and that starts after Saturday.
So, take Article 21, Chris, and you've got them all down as paid for out of free cash, I believe. And if we decide after Saturday or after 2 weeks from now that we don't want to
If
pay
you
it out
want
of
to
free
have it as a
cash,
capital exclusion or a debt exclusion, then that's part of the motion. That's actually the motion that gets presented at town meeting.
Okay.
That won't need to be done until really beginning of May.
okay, then I guess we'll just change this for Articles 21 through, what's the last article, Chris?
66.
21 through 66. Does anyone see anything in there they do not want on there?
Well, verbiage, when do we talk about verbiage? So, which article was it? Article 30 was the language needs to
66.
change for the acceptance of the
Yeah,
grant that we already
I think
accepted.
that if there are things like that, then my suggestion would be vote the balance and then excluding that one, and then come back if there's a language topic, and then talk about the language topic.
Okay, what number? Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so we don't totally baffle everybody who's watching this thing, to Ed's point earlier, there's several moving parts to this. I mean, we are the arbiters of what gets into the warrant, unless it's a petition article on a regular town meeting. So what we're doing is we're approving the construct for the articles, the article numbers, and the verbiage in it. We could, at some point later, have second thoughts that we don't really particularly want to do something and vote to indefinitely postpone and recommend that to the town meeting. That's a wholly separate action, so that if we vote to do this, we are forming the warrant with the numbers that are there, with the articles that are there, and you can't put something back once it's yanked, because we're past that point in the charter now. So really all we're doing is saying, we're allowing this to go forward for further discussion, and we'll decide whether we, the funding mechanism is right, and whether we actually approve of the final things after the budget hearings.
I
So-
get it.
Yeah,
I'm
but
just
I'm not
following
sure
the
if the
same
public
pro-
does after
Same
that.
process we followed the last 2 years.
I
That's
sat
all
here
I
and
was
I'm
trying to do.
confused, so.
So, Don, is there anything you want pulled?
Nothing.
Nothing. You're okay with 21 through 66?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I'd like the language changed in Article 30.
All right, let's just talk about the language change.
So
then.
everything except for 30.
Let's do, we
Well,
may as well-
wait, I wasn't done yet.
Go ahead.
Do you want to pull it entirely?
No, let her finish.
No, I just want to change the language, because, I mean, do you want me to give you the specific, what I'm trying to say, or no?
I mean, my suggestion is vote everything that you're comfortable with, and then go back with the ones that you want to have a discussion about the language. That
Can I
would
get a
be my
motion on
suggestion.
21 through 29, if everyone else on the board agrees with those?
I'd like to pull 38.
21 through 29. Let's do 21 through 29. Is there anything in that you want to pull?
No.
Don, you already said no, and Janelle stopped at 30. So can I get a motion on 21 through 29?
I move we accept and adopt 21 through
29.
29.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve Articles 21 through 29 to be in the warrant. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, what number did you want to pull, Larry?
I wanted to discuss 38.
All right, so can I get a motion on 31 through 37?
So move.
Second.
Accept and adopt.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So far, we're going back to 30 and 38. And
16.
16, we had conversation on too. Okay, now, anyone want to pull anything from 39 to 66?
I haven't read it all, I'm sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
Move we accept and adopt.
Hold on one second, Janelle's just taking a minute. Julie, is there anything in there you want to?
No.
No, I guess that's good.
Okay. Can I get a motion on 39 through 66?
So move we accept and adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept and adopt Articles 39 through 66. Any discussion? All, go ahead.
Yep. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one quick thing, because we kind of went wayward there for a while. Any of the ones that have to do with bylaw changes, any of them, even the planning board ones, they hold hearings, but also we need to refer them, once we vote that they're going to be on here, to the bylaw charter review committee, because they have to hold meetings as to form and structure at the same time that the committees are holding meetings as to substance.
I believe we have sent some, but once this is
Yeah,
finalized, we'll send that.
Once we finalize it,
Absolutely.
we should be sending it over.
Can I ask one thing on that, on the marijuana then?
Yep, go ahead.
So, in what you just said and having to review that, but we also, they're not finalizing, the state isn't finalizing their stuff till the end of March, right?
It's after this
After
is done.
3/31 though is by the, right? So I'm just wondering how that,
Charter only gets into construct. I mean, if it fits in the proper place in our bylaws, they hold a hearing for that, and they're required to hold a hearing.
Okay, so
So
it
I'm just
doesn't really-
mentioning it, that once we vote to do this, that our next step would be institutionally refer it.
okay.
Any other discussion on 39 through 66, including in the warrant? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's go revisit number 16.
I have difficulties with 16. I hate to say this because I've been, as Chris knows, trying to find a way to set some money aside for future sewer. This one's, I think we may be a year ahead of time on this. And my concern is that we're doing a couple things. We put this, we create an enterprise fund, you know, to basically start putting money ahead for operations and fund that through free cash for violating one of our policies of using free cash for operations.
It's not funded through free cash. It's funded through raise and appropriate.
Raise and appropriate, I thought it said free cash. The other thing I'm a little, that's good, I'm a little uncertain that it's very broad objectives, that the money can be used. It's not specific at all of how the money will be used, whether it's operations, I think read the article, it says cap, and other things. I would like to be more specific on how the money could be used as well.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Until, as far as I understand this, until the wastewater system is actually built, it's under our jurisdiction here. It gets handed when the pipes are in the ground over to the new construct of a water wastewater commission. If we don't do this, I mean, the idea of populating it with money wasn't because we couldn't wait to spend it. The idea was to actually give it a head start, to start it while we had the
And that's
money.
why I've been for it. This one, the way this was worded concerned me for the reasons I stated.
I'm just pointing out that we have control over that. There can't be a disbursement from it because there is no other entity that has jurisdiction yet.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think the other mechanism to this, Mr. Chairman, is that if it's just part of the operating budget, then the 90,000 would go back. It becomes
Right, and that's why I
converted to free
object to
cash.
first, and
This is
and
the
that's why
mechanism.
we push for an enterprise fund.
Right. This allows for it to become retained earnings and stay within the system, and that does allow for it to build up.
Otherwise, we're going to wait another year and try to figure out how to fund it again.
Oh, no, I'd offer that concept. I
Yep.
said, I have two objections that you've already clarified one, funding the, from
It is
tax
built into
rolls.
raise and appropriate too. It's not.
The other one
from free
I was a little concerned about was it's so broadly stated as for operation debt, capital, and other maintenance costs. So it's extremely broadly worded.
But
And-
aren't those all the kind of issues we could find ourselves in?
Yes.
We need to be able to use that money for any one of those items that might cause us to stall.
Back to Larry.
It's similar to the water.
Well, we're raising capital debt to pay for the capital, And I think we want to be careful, we wouldn't want to use this, for instance, for our PR purposes, if it was for operations.
But
Now, if we're comfortable, if we're gonna control it, then I'm okay with it.
I have
Those are
no-
my
It's your
objections.
budget,
I
yeah.
have no control. Well, future, after we put it in there, it still has to come back to the Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen to be
Okay.
spent, right?
Okay.
You know?
The verbiage does say, or transfer from free cash.
Yeah, we try to,
Yeah.
just for operating purposes, we
Thank you.
try to
I thought
keep
I
this
read
as,
that.
we try to keep this as generic as possible, so that's the same language you'll see in everything that's related to it. That's recommendation of the attorney.
With that
But-
said,
The motion-
as Larry said, it violates the free cash policy, so why have it in there? Or, I'm not sure it does, but if it violates our free cash policy, take it out.
Just the word.
To raise an appropriate
That's
a
fine.
sum of money.
I'm just trying to be consistent on how we're using free
You can do
cash.
the motion anyway.
Well, no, you
That's right.
can't.
Well, if we're
If,
using
if
it in other
if we have it
places.
as raise and appropriate, then when we go to town meeting, I have to construct the motion to only raise and appropriate. If we leave the article as transfer, if, let's say, for instance, we wanted to get even more of a jump start to put some money into this, you could transfer it from free cash. Take transfer out, and that option doesn't exist.
I'm comfortable with free cash if the money's there, if it doesn't violate our own policy.
Yeah, we would, if the motion said to take it from free cash, then that would be a violation of the policy. This just gives us a full range of items. So, I mean, this is the entry point into whatever we want to do, whatever things that we don't know, it gives us a full range of funding it.
I appreciate that, but does it violate our free cash policy?
If the motion says it, that we're going to take it from free cash and use it for operations, then yes, it would. We're not at the motion stage.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I'm so confused, because it says it right there.
No, that's just the explanation, but the motion, he's saying, would say, I guess where I'm
This is-
confused is if it is, Chris, I guess where I'm confused, I understand it's not the motion.
Right.
If we're voting the language and the language is in there to give us whatever option it is to give us, and it violates it, I don't understand why we would put it in there, knowing that it won't be in the motion.
That's fine, you know, I'm not gonna,
I
this
guess
isn't,
I
this
wanna-
isn't one to die on the sword for. I mean, what they're talking, you know, what the attorney says is, what happens if we wanted to put aside a separate fund in the sewer to help, you know, people that can't afford?
Right.
And we've done this on some of the things, actually, there's one in here to fund kind of safety net issues for people that can't, and we have funded that from free cash. So now, if you wanted to put that concept in and you take transfer out, we can't do it.
Okay, Don?
However,
It's just a full range of options.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just a little concerned that we're not seeing the forest for the trees here, because this fund is going to be different from the water fund. We've already said up front that it's likely that it might need infusions of cash. It's not going to be totally neutral where it just revolves around the ratepayers like the water fund does. So for two reasons, I mean, if you start constricting this and we don't put any money in, what are we really doing? I mean, because at some point in time, we're gonna have to fuel this above a net level anyway.
Don, maybe you can explain it better. I'm not against it, and I think everything you just mentioned is a great idea in helping people that can't afford it. Does it violate a policy or not? Chris is shaking his head no, so I'm gonna go along with the no. Do you agree with it, it's a no?
I don't think it does.
Okay. Larry?
I'm okay with it. The reason I picked on this, and I want to be really very careful is that we're asking for a big take at town meeting to do the construction. I don't want a side discussion going on, which is a relatively minor financial cost, to disrail that. I don't want this to be a discussion point at town meeting.
Right.
So I want to be careful on the wording. If everyone's comfortable with it, I'm okay with it, but that's the reason I picked on this more than I would some other motions.
No, thank you for the conversation. Julie?
So I think in response to that, though, this is exactly why we need this in here and we need the flexibility, because in addition to the conversation that is going to be had on town meeting floor is, what if I can't afford this, and what if I need some help? We need to be able to say, we've addressed that, we've taken care of it. And we need the flexibility to be able to say, and it's set up this manner.
Okay.
So I think it's important that we leave it alone.
Janelle?
I don't see how this wording for the sewer enterprise fund addresses helping people. You're talking about like sewer hookup costs, maybe helping people that can't afford. It talks about the operation,
And
the capital and other operation and maintenance costs of sewer utility. It doesn't talk about personal costs.
Julie?
I just was trying to come up with an example. Not
it
a good
also-
one, obviously.
No, it's okay, Chris, but I think this is good conversation.
Yeah,
We
no,
wanna
it
make
is.
sure we're making the right
Words are
decision.
important.
Julie?
Because when it says in here, it specifically says, to begin operation for fiscal year 2019, which begins on July 1st, 2018, right? To further raise and appropriate or transfer from free cash money for an initial deposit into the enterprise fund and to act fully thereon. Up front, when it's saying sewer enterprise fund, is saying pursuant to chapter 44, section 53, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, we said down here, the town is developing a wastewater collection system in the southern part of Pleasant Bay. Phase 2 project will not have enough users to support the fees. This will create a sewer enterprise account to allow for a combination of collection of fees along with taxpayer subsidy until sufficient users are connected, which will be several years.
Subsidy.
So if somebody is in a situation that says, I simply cannot do this, and they're gonna be a bog in the system, we have a way that we could deal with that.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, I find this whole discussion interesting, but in terms of changing the language on the warrant articles or adjusting the language, the article in your town bylaw, which lays out the procedure for when and how articles are supposed to be submitted, one of the things that it says is all articles to be inserted in the May town meeting shall be submitted in final form in writing to the selectmen no later than 12 noon on the second Friday in February. And so that's sort of the cutoff time when you get to change. I mean, we always allowed corrections of misspellings and obvious grammatical errors, but any major changing in the intent or meaning of the article that was submitted in February, the only way you get to change that is on town meeting floor through the motion that's made.
Well, some of this, Ed, to be fair, is the first time we're looking at it is tonight. So we missed that date.
Yeah, you did.
And now so nobody's looked at it.
Yeah.
So now we, being the responsible Board of Selectmen, are going through it and not gonna allow anything to go into the warrant that we don't think is right.
Well, then
So-
your option is to drop the article entirely or deal with it through the motion you make on town meeting floor. The option of changing the form of the article ends with the date that it's due for submission.
This is their first view, that's all I can say.
I know,
Okay.
it's always been a problem. I hated it when I was a selectman or before, but
Larry?
that's the
I
rule.
move we accept and adopt Article 16.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Don.
Yeah, sure.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now to 30.
Me?
Yes.
So is it number 30 next?
Yes.
So, the verbiage says, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept a grant, blah, blah, blah. We've already accepted it, so I thought we should have it, read something to the effect of, to see how the town shall utilize this grant. We had a long, contentious discussion last week about this, and basically what we need to do is rewrite that whole article, sorry Ed, to say, do we use the 1 million as an offset or as an addition to the $3 million?
Yeah,
Or do we just get rid of the whole article?
Chris?
Mr. Chairman, I think, again, for town meetings, sometimes people come in and they don't know what's going on, they don't necessarily have all the items. So it's more, the first part is It does say, vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept the grant from the Massachusetts Seaport Council in the amount of $1 million for the construction of landside improvements at Saquatucket Harbor. The more important part to this is the second part of this construction, and to authorize the Selectmen to expend such grant funds in addition to the appropriation under the Article 20 of the May 1st, 2017 annual town meeting for the purposes set forth in that site plan included in the prior vote of town meeting, including any other costs incidental and related thereto, and act fully thereon. So basically, I thought what the intent of is, if favorable vote on this allows for that grant to be used above and beyond the $3 million level, a no vote says, nope, you have to keep it at the $3 million level. So that was the construction behind the intent of this article, and I thought that was what the board's intent was from that other evening's discussion.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Larry, any discussion on this one?
No, no.
Julie?
No, sorry, no.
Don?
No, I was going to echo what Chris had just said, because this gets turned down. We're not turning down the grant, even with this text. This gets turned down. The grant money's in hand, and it defrays the cost of the existing project. If it gets accepted, it augments that.
Correct.
Janelle?
Sounds like I'm outvoted. I would get rid of the word accept, because we've already accepted the grant, right? But I am a literal person, and that's me, you know?
So the only question, Chris, that I have is, if this is Article 30 and the explanation doesn't allow for someone to say that they would like to finish the project, let's just say, without the snack shack, which, just for the board, I have come around and I'm supporting what town meeting voted. So I'm not saying, but what if, Chris, because this has become a contentious issue, what if they want to finish the project, including the septic system, including the boardwalks for the handicap rather than stone dust? I know somebody can make a motion to amend.
Correct.
But should we allow for anything in any description? I mean, this is okay to me, but I'm not feeling like we're giving anyone an option if they want an option.
Well, I think that, again, when you construct the motions for, when you construct the article for town meeting, what we want to do is, that's why we included the site plan. So the site plan includes the snack shack. I don't make up these rules, but the rule that I've always had, and it's really the moderator's call, is you cannot expand the scope of an article, but you can always contract the scope of the article. So in this case, the snack shack is included on there, it's part of it, it's obvious. If someone wanted to make an amendment and say, we want the snack shack taken out, but everything else completed, now they can do that in the form of an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Can I get a motion on this?
I move we accept and adopt Article 30, accept Massachusetts Seaport Economic Council grant for the Saquatucket Harbor Landside Project.
Yeah. Okay, great. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you. On to Article 38.
Mine is really simple, because I mentioned it a couple times before. The table that's there, we have the Conservation Commission with 7 members. It's actually 7 members plus 2 alternates.
Hold on.
It's what's in our charter, and
Which,
We had a meeting today.
Article 38.
yeah, we had a meeting on it, and Dawn came in this morning.
I thought
so
you guys were going to do that.
Yeah, we did it this
So
morning.
this will be corrected.
It will be corrected, yeah.
Okay.
There's substantial changes.
And what exists currently is what it will mirror. So if there's 7 people on a committee, then it will say 7.
We're not going to recreate the government. We went through the charter and applied the same numbers.
Can I get a motion on this?
Yeah, I move we accept and adopt, let me get up to that, Article 38, which I went, to amend the Code of Harwich General Bylaws, 7-10, composition of appointed agencies as updated.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I think we're through it, Chris.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing, just in terms of the misplaced, at your place, we had left the language There's 5 ballot questions outside of the election process. What I did with mine, if you don't mind me looking on. So we have the 2018 question number 1, shall the town approve the charter amendments proposed by town meeting, summarized below? So last year at town meeting, there was these, and it's a description of all the changes that were made. It was about 4 pages of text. So this is a description of the summary of all the changes. So that would be voted yes or no to adopt those changes. And then on the other side of it are the 4 ballot questions related to, in accordance with the capital plan, there are 4 debt exclusions that are currently contemplated. If that's something that the board wanted to add, debt exclusions, we'd have to kind of put that in a more timely fashion. But the first one is to basically do the comprehensive wastewater management plan, the construction of the sewers on the southern section of the Pleasant Bay watershed. The second is to allow for the bond issuance for the road maintenance program, $700,000. This has been historically done, and we do pay off that every 5 years, so we pay it down. So it's a rotating element to maintain our streets. The third one would be the provision for the design, construction, and construction administration of Fire Station 2 at 149 Route 137, and to equip and furnish the same. And then the fourth one is, shall the town be exempt from the Proposition 2.5 for the pet crematory, not only the building, but the associated equipment. I don't know if we have a good write-up on that. The idea behind this is very similar to what we did for the golf course last year, that it is anticipated that the majority of this will be paid by fees generated by the facility. But again, as a backstop, you always want to have these things as a debt exclusion or a general obligation bond of the town. But it is anticipated that the majority of this would be funded from fees. Maybe not in the first year of operation, but probably in the second and third, we'll be able to, there will be a period of adjustment. But this gives us the ability to make our debt payments in light of something happening otherwise. But we've done this will be the 3rd time now. We did it on Saquatucket Harbor on the water side, the golf course, and then this will be the 3rd.
Thank you, Chris. Given this wasn't in the packet tonight and the public's not reading it, I'd like to bring this back for next week with final definitions. We plan on voting the final warrant next week anyway, so.
Yep.
Bring this back next week and expand that definition, please. On the cemetery, crematorium.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in the book or not. I will check.
Okay. I'd like to add it and have it in the packet so the public can read it.
Yep.
All set on the warrant?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Wastewater Support Committee update. Sharon?
Okay, Sharon Flinger, Wastewater Support Committee Chairperson. Do you want me to give you a complete update, a short one, or just go into the letter?
Give me a short update and then go into the letter.
All right. The committee was only put together in early January, and it's taken us a little while to get started. But once we got started, I'm going to say the main thing that we did was on February 15th. We did an evening meeting, and we had what was learned since the January 16th meeting that the town and CDM Smith put on. I thought that was very successful, at least according to the feedback we got. So we did put out some brochures on that, or they just printed them off here at town. They're at the town hall, they're at the community center and the library. There's also some charts. The one chart is the one on the schedule, and there's one there that has the diagram of the town along with the sum of the street listings. So that is now, I just took it over there this morning at the library as well as the community center. What we're looking forward to, March 15th, Megan Eldridge from the Board of Health is coming, and that's going to be an evening meeting, and she's going to go through where they are with whatever information they have to present at that meeting. Now, that's a short version. The real reason that we're here tonight that I'm here tonight is discuss a letter that I'd like to have sent out. And I had gotten an email from one of the people in town whose concern is that a lot of the people that are, I shouldn't say a lot, there are going to be a number of people in East Harwich that are to be sewered, maybe to be sewered, are not really aware that this is going to happen, all right? They don't get the newspaper, they don't get on the website, and they aren't aware of it. So what I put together was a letter, all right? And you have it in your packet. I do have to say I have a word missing in the 4th paragraph, and I need to correct some of the punctuation, but this is in essence what we would like to send out. It's an information letter. It's basically, I'm going to read the beginning of it. It says, you're receiving this letter because you live in East Harwich and may be affected by the sewering project. Although the list of homes that will be sewered is not finalized, we would like to keep you informed about the project. The final list should be available by the end of March or early April. So that kind of sets the tone for this letter. The rest of what's in this letter is to educate them as to the meetings that we have for the wastewater support committee and where they can go to find that information. All right? I didn't want to get into specific detail in this, or it was going to be multi-pages, and my feeling is they were going to throw it out. They're not going to read it. So this, if you agreed to this, tomorrow morning at our waste support committee, we will go over this, and if we approve it, I'd like to have it sent out. With that said, what I would like to do is include the people in East Harwich that may be sewered, all right, and extend it to that area outside of East Harwich that from my understanding, is taken from a different phase that we may be including, all right, and include those. And with that, I would think we can get a list of the names and addresses from CDM Smith, because they would have sent out that survey, and I'm assuming they included those people as well. The only other question I have on the letter itself that I don't have here is, do we want to put the names and email and/or phone numbers of like Dan and Chris, where the people can call and get some information? So I didn't include that on this letter because it went out in the packet, but do we want to put that if you guys want to go ahead with this letter? And then the third issue is where the funding is going to come from to send this letter out. Any questions?
Thank you. Anything else, any other wants or needs or lack of support that you want to talk about? Do you need anything else from the board? This is obviously a very important project that's taking shape quickly, and town meeting is coming right up. What support do you need from us besides our consideration?
The only thing that I would like to say is, I know we had asked for that survey, that we wanted to see what the wording was, because somebody told me they got a survey. I assumed the survey that was sent out and didn't understand it and threw it out. So I don't know what that survey said. So when I got the question on that, it was like, I'm sorry, I don't know what the wording was. And I believe that was the one that was sent out by CDM Smith that was going to have the engineers stop by. I'm assuming that's what it was. So all I'm asking is, can we as a committee be kept informed of what has been done and what's going to be done, so that when we get questions, that we can at least either have an answer or be able to direct it to somebody?
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, just, I did attend the meeting. I think Larry was there as well. I think there was a little bit of confusion, and, you know, when sometimes we talk and we realize that there could be dual meaning. And, you know, the town clerk sends out the census survey, and we send out survey information. And I think that some folks thought that it was going to be a survey of that nature that they could fill out about whether they support or not, or I'm not sure exactly. And it was literally a survey crew that was going to show up on their property and survey the elevations of their property. And I do think, I mean, I don't know, I've been doing this a long time, and sometimes you just think things are second nature. That to us, to me, an engineering survey is a crew that looks but I could see where people drew the
Right, and
conclusion
I
that it was a
agree. All
different
I'm
survey.
saying is that for our committee that's supposed to be an outreach, that I'd like to be able to have that information, that if somebody comes to us, that I don't have to say, you know what, I don't know what you're talking about, I didn't see it. I don't like being put in that position, okay? The one other thing that I would like to see is I understand that there is a draft of a, I'm going to say, and I don't know this to be true, a 4-pager that was going to be put out by CDM Smith that was going to include the wording of the warrant, but I don't know what else it's including. Now, that was brought up, that they had a brochure, and I think you said we're just waiting for the wording of the warrant, but
Yes.
we've never seen what else it's including. And I guess what I'm saying is, as our committee is the outreach, it'd be nice if we saw it before the town saw it, that we don't end up looking like, what are we here for?
So
Yeah,
survey questions answered. There was no survey, it was.
Well, it was,
surveyor.
it is a survey
yeah,
that just said that
And-
the engineering was going to be
Just on
done.
the survey, the survey letters went out before the committee was
Okay.
reconstituted.
Do we
so
have that information now? What the survey
The form of the
results?
letter that went out, yeah, I'm sure we have it. We can get that available. The second part, though, on the 4-pager.
Yeah.
The key component to the 4-pager was the warrant language.
Is it
And
just,
as-
so you're going to have a 4-pager with just a warrant on it?
Hang on, let
No,
me-
that's my
let-
point.
Hold on, I got your question.
But we were gonna do an update to the 4-pager that was done last year. And one of the things that we did last year as part of the material was a 4-pager, and part of that key part of the 4-pager was the warrant article language. So he had a piece that was missing from the 4-pager that he wanted to plug in before he sent it out.
So all that's going to, the only
It's-
difference between last year's and this year's is the wording in the warrant?
Hang on one second. I got your question, and we're gonna go there. What else were you looking for?
In other words, so far, we haven't seen it. So we
Right,
have
I know,
no,
I got that part. Anything else?
no, I'm going to say that pretty well covers it, other than, when things like this are coming up, that at least, not that we're going to put the information out necessarily, but just so we're aware of what is going on, that when we get questions, like sometimes you make comments and then we get questions, well, what about this or that? And we don't really understand what's going on. We can't answer it. And this has happened a few times, and we feel a little uncomfortable, like, what are we really here for if we can't answer the questions? Because my feeling is that what we're here to do for the town is to support the town in getting their questions and concerns answered from the town. And again, giving the information that we have back to the people. So what I'm saying is for us to do the outreach, that we need to be kept
Gotcha,
aware of what's going on.
crystal clear. I'm gonna let Chris go first.
Yeah, so the 4-pager, I will, you have a meeting tomorrow, I'm
Yes,
planning on attending.
tomorrow morning.
So I'll try to bring that material
right.
with me. It's only in draft form.
That's fine.
So your input is what we're, what we're seeking.
Mm-hmm,
So
okay.
It just was, the draft wasn't finished because we didn't have the language ready to go.
All right, but I guess, yeah, we would like to see that.
My comment on that, Chris, is this is our committee, support committee for this project. They should be involved every step of the way. They should have input on that brochure, and we're 2 months late on it. So if David Young, CDM Smith, can bring that 4-pager forward, because this board should be able to chime in if there's enough information in it. And we would do that based on the committee's recommendations along with the paid consultant.
Sure.
So the sooner rather than later. On the survey, Chris, same thing, you get those results, and the survey form to them as well?
Yes.
Okay, now just bringing up the letter that they're asking to send, does this board have a problem with a letter being sent out?
Not at all.
Now, this is Larry, go ahead.
No, I get the same feedback Sharon does, even though we talk about it a lot. There's a lot of people that are unaware.
Julie?
So I think the letter's a great idea, but I also think while you're reaching out to the people with this letter, there's a couple other things that I would say. If we're gonna do a mailing, and I understand we need to figure out how we're paying for that mailing, but in addition to the letter, it would be nice to also have the brochure, the diagram, right, there's a diagram that helps people figure out, like, okay, this is them looking at my house, and where am I connecting? I mean, I'm not saying overload them, but I am saying if you give the letter and you say, you know, it's enclosed is some information on the Barnstable Fund about applying, okay, so you think it's getting
See,
ahead?
I think what we're doing there then is you're starting to put so much information in there that if that's all there,
Okay.
it's not enough. So I think just a little bit can be dangerous. And that's the purpose of, if when you read the rest of the letter, that it's going to take them to the link. All right? We're updating that website, which hopefully we will settle on a format for that tomorrow. And then the fact of the meetings. And then that's why I was suggesting putting Dan and possibly Chris, their emails on there, that if there are questions, more technical questions, because I think Dan had already mentioned that at one of our meetings, that he would include his email. I just didn't know whether we should put it in the letter, and I didn't know if Chris wanted it in the letter along with his phone number. So that's the other decision.
Yeah, I'm happy with the phone number. I've fielded a bunch of questions already. I don't have any issue with that.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure that we shouldn't have an email address, though, because, I mean, as Sharon goes forward, there's going to be some commonality to what people are saying. Harder to put together if you're getting phone calls. I mean, if you get emails and you start getting thematic questions that everybody's got, the one big concern, and Larry knows this because 6 or 7 years ago I got up at town meeting, I was hostile to this whole thing. The reason being is it all seemed like a glib sales pitch rather than having some real information. They don't care what the map looks like. I mean, and you're going to overload them. They do care that somebody's out there on the other end listening to them. And you sending this letter actually supports the fact that somebody cares one way or the other about their participation in the process. But I got to point out, we don't know some of these answers anyway. You can't put anything in there about the county's program because the question that came up to me from a lot of people was not answered by the county.
All right.
Can you have a current loan and get another loan on top of it? We never heard an answer to that.
All right,
So
can I
I
just,
don't
I'm
want
going
to
to
get to
just
town
add
meeting and
something.
have the same questions again.
I'm just going to add something to that. We have somebody looking into the banks right now to see what information, and we're trying to get one of our Thursday evening, it's probably going to be in April, since it's not going to look like May or March, as well as I wanted to contact the county again and see if we can't have another meeting like on the Thursday evening one, and have the people be able to come and ask other questions. So that is in the works.
But if you put the email address in, you can find out, like the majority of the
Dan
questions are.
Pelletier's email.
We could put mine and Dan's.
Okay.
I don't think that's an
So
issue.
Julie?
One other thing, though, where, to the point of you needing the information prior to getting out, in other formats that you're not aware of, I'm sure that CDM Smith can have somebody in a PR or outreach have somebody from your group, to be on an email where, these are documents like that we're looking at or that we're drafting. I mean, there's got to be some direct line so that they don't have to just sit and wait for them to be handed to them or emailed through the town. CDM Smith should be able to say, here is what we're working on, here are some upcoming, communications that we're drafting. And they can have draft all over them. I'm sure they do this all the time. They've got to have somebody who's working with the towns as a public outreach.
Chris?
Or no?
Yeah,
Because-
there was a support contract that had been in place while they were doing the permit. Now that the permit work has been done, it's just strictly kind of an engineering project for the East Harwich. They do have, or they will have, contact information for a surveyor that they'll have. But I don't think, we have a very, very limited contract for them to provide information for the committee.
So then you figure if any kind of draft of info's going out, or they're looking at stuff, they're emailing David, or whoever's working with David is emailing you,
Right,
right?
David
So why
emails-
not automatically, from the
We
minute
can
you
do
get
that.
that email, link it to
I
the
think
committee?
David Young does send quite a bit of material, and if not, we'll make sure that he sends some to them at the same time he sends it to me.
Yeah, just so that they are aware, because there's nothing worse than being on a committee and not be able to answer the question.
All right, let me just clarify something. So you're saying making sure we're getting it. I thought you wanted this all to go out in this letter.
No.
Okay, all right.
Prior to that,
Yes.
originally, I was saying,
Yeah.
you know, would it be, if you're doing a
Mhm.
mailing and we're already trying to figure out how we're gonna pay for it, would it be
Mhm.
worthwhile to do a consolidated mailing, to give your cover letter, which gives information where people can reach out, and I think Dawn's point is good. Rather, you can do a phone number, but I think email is good, because now you have a trail of these questions that you
Mhm.
can go back to somebody and
Mhm.
say,
And
you know.
I would think, I would hope that any questions that would come up from Chris, or go to Chris or from Dan, would be relayed back to us, because we're also updating the frequently asked questions, all right? And we're going to get those, we're working on those as well, to get them consolidated and into an area where they can
Let
do.
me suggest we move this back to the committee, and if we authorize a letter, and they can sort it out at this point.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Julie.
Well, so, and I'm, you know, again, I think it's great, I'm not critiquing it at all, and I think you're right, they can go back and finalize that. Two other comments, though, I would also make, is that in terms of outreach, you know, are these meetings being televised?
Yes,
Okay, great.
not live, not live.
No, but somebody can go
Yes.
back
Yes.
and watch them. And also, again, just getting the word out.
Mhm.
I don't know if you ask the school to put the link in the Friday Focus, because again, anybody who says, you know, do you live in East Harwich? You know, click on this link. I mean, it's just another way that you're reaching another.
All right,
boatload of
I need to get that in. I'm not sure what you're talking about, because I'm not familiar with it, so you can let me know.
The high school does a weekly newsletter. Each school does a weekly newsletter. It would be great to put that link in.
Yeah, just so, I mean, some of the stuff we're going over recharted ground. Last year, we had a discussion with Scott Carpenter, the superintendent. I think he did every third or fourth grader got one of the pamphlets,
Right.
and he incorporated it into the biology program.
Yeah, but I'm
I
not
think
saying, I get what you're saying.
We're
I'm just
doing
saying in
different things
terms
like
of
that that we'll reach out again.
Like if you're somebody who's gonna maybe discard the letter,
Mm-hmm.
you may not discard the link that's in
Right.
in the school newsletter, is all I'm saying. It's just another way to get the information in front of somebody, and it doesn't cost anything.
Agreed. Janelle?
Okay, I'm gonna be a little bit of a devil's advocate for the board here. I do not think we should put Chris or Dan's email on this letter. I think this letter is from the wastewater support committee.
Mhm.
You want Chris and Dan to field you the questions that they receive anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of work. I really think that you've already got your, or whoever answers this on the letter.
Mhm.
I think this letter is fine the way it is. And I
Yep.
don't think we should get anybody involved from the actual, you know, administration or from wastewater until the step-by-step guide that you mentioned is done.
Mhm.
Once the step-by-step guide is done, on that brochure, whatever it ends up being, maybe it's a trifold, whatever it is, that should have the official town emails of Chris and Dan. That's my opinion. I
Okay.
think this letter is perfect the way it is, and it just gives the homeowner enough.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody hasn't been following along, your committee is a perfect place for them to start. Chris, no offense, Chris, you have a ton of emails you go through every day. It takes you a little while to get back to people. They're gonna get frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you, or whoever answers that, maybe you all, 4 of you do, 5 of you do.
No, just me.
Just you.
Right now.
Well, I know you, Sharon. I know you're gonna get back to that person within 24 hours. And
Don?
I don't know what Dan's
I gotta-
email patterns are,
Now,
but I
the-
know
the
Chris
only-
has
the
a
only
lot
thing
of
I
I'm
would-
gonna move this along, because I'm not gonna stay until 10 again tonight. So thank you. Don?
I respectfully disagree, because it's a real imposition on the people who are having a pipe shoved into their house, too. They want some answers. They want some people that they know are in a position to give them some answers, and they want to know there's somebody out there, more than just the committee. I would, so with that spirit, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the letter to be sent out with the inclusion of the emails.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the letter to be sent out, including town administrator and Dan Pelletier's email and phone number. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So, Chris, the important question now is, we did set aside $20,000 to be used for, in last year's budget, to be used for
Yeah,
wastewater
we have
support.
money in postage. I mean, this would be about $300, a little over
So we can pay
$300.
for it.
So I think there's enough money to
Okay.
take it out of postage.
Thank you. And just, just real quick, Dan Pelletier was in your meeting, our water superintendent, who's gonna be the wastewater superintendent eventually, we hope, asked to have his email put in there.
Yes.
And he has more technical knowledge than you have. So if somebody emails you, you're gonna have to call Dan and get the answer
Yes,
anyway.
which is, I was
or
going to
Chris.
say that, exactly.
As long as the information flow, Chris, goes back to the wastewater support committee, I'm happy.
I've been trying to attend all their meetings.
And then the only other question I would have is, can we get that email, the database of the names and addresses from CDM Smith?
Actually, the town provided that to CDM, so we have
Oh.
it down in the assessor's department.
All right, so you know where all those went, so we can have that. All right.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Chris, I'm gonna just, I'm gonna bring up the storm damage brush fee waiver policy, but I believe Janelle had a question on this, so I'm gonna wait till she gets back. So, can you just start with your town administrator's report?
Actually,
Oh,
Mr. Chairman,
old business, never mind.
jumped over to old business.
All right, Housing Authority position. So Anita approached me, and she wants to know if the board's pleasure is to do a one-year appointment again, or to put it on the ballot for the 4-year. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I strongly feel that we should appoint again, because the fact that a law has not actually been pushed into regulation and into fruition doesn't mean that the law wasn't passed. The law's intent was to create a tenant representative, and if we go ahead and put this on the ballot for the next 4 years, that it's going to be like Survivor. Somebody's got to get voted off the island then. I mean, we're locking in the position permanently, at least for 4 years. And I would urge us to just make another year appointment and see what the state's doing, because they haven't rescinded the law.
Thank you, Don. Larry?
I'm going to trust the judgment of Don and Julie on this one.
Julie?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think if by doing a 4-year, we're asking for trouble, because it is a law, and we're waiting for the state, to move forward. But can I ask another?
Go ahead.
So in terms of moving forward with how we proceed, can I jump to the next section?
No.
Oh, okay.
And we're not
We'll be
talking
getting
about
there.
septic either. Can I get a motion on this?
Well, wait, I do have a question, though.
All right, go ahead.
So, my only question here is, I understand that we're putting forward Randall Pond, but I have to say.
No, that's the next item.
Oh,
This is
sorry.
the housing
is just
authority
putting this on the
position.
ballot.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Ballot or
No, I'm
appointment.
sorry, that's why I was, okay, never mind. I'll wait,
Are you fixed yet?
I'm fixed.
Can I get a motion?
I move that the selectmen support the appointment of a one-year appointment of an individual for the Housing Authority, and to not place it on the ballot.
Second.
Moved and seconded to support the appointment, one-year appointment. And just so everybody knows, that means a joint meeting with CPC and the Board of Selectmen.
Housing?
Housing
I
authority.
mean, sorry, the Housing and the Selectmen, and then we appoint somebody, mutually agree and appoint somebody. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up is recommendation to appoint Randall Pond as the Housing Authority representative to the Community Preservation Committee, term to expire May 15th, 2018. Done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would recommend that we do to 19. We're 9 months into this process. I don't know where they got the idea that they had to go to the state to find out stuff, because we have a home rule charter. I mean, and that specifies things in the charter. Having said that, it's been a mishmash, and we all agreed that eventually, in the next year, we were going to agree how we were going to handle ex officio people, because they were never in the original charter. You have to have the underlying appointment, whether it's the planning board or whatever, in order to be eligible to be appointed ex officio. We haven't come up with a permanent fix, so I would recommend that in the meantime, since I'm confident that Randall's term doesn't expire until the May elections in 2019, that we make the appointment for Randall to be the ex officio appointee of the Housing Authority to the CPC with a term to expire 2019.
Okay.
That's a motion. Do I have a second on that before discussion?
Second.
Okay, second, discussion.
So my only question on this, and I did ask back, I think it was last week, I have no problem with it, but we did want the minutes that showed that they were voted. And I did reach out to Sally Urbano had emailed me, and I did indicate that that was all we were looking for, was that we needed the voted
approved
minutes,
minutes.
that's all. And I don't see them in the packet. That was the only question I had.
I have, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Don.
I have here, I brought up the Harwich Housing Authority, and they indicate their site that they have minutes for 1/2/2018 that indicate on that day that they approved the minutes of the preceding meeting.
I read the same, and I'm comfortable with that
Okay,
at this point.
that's fine.
At this point, I don't want to drag this out.
Yeah, I don't want to drag it, let's move it
No,
on.
I don't want to drag that.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All set. So going back to new business, per the Attorney General's office, the Board of Selectmen may hold open session for topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting following new business. So storm damage brush fee waiver policy, which was enacted in September 30th of 2008. If the governor, if the president, the governor, or the Harwich Board of Selectmen deem that the storm had the magnitude as an emergency, that we would waive brush fee waiver. So I want to enact that. I want the board to agree to enact that and even do it by way of motion. It's 14 days, and it would be 14 days starting at the time the dump opens tomorrow. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's what I was going to say earlier. The governor actually declared the emergency, so if we
So we
want
don't have to.
and we're not adopting a new policy. All we have to do is invoke it
Right.
tonight. So I move that we invoke the policy from here with the expiration of 14 days hence.
Just for clarity, it says calendar days, just so people don't think it's working days. I mean, the facility's open 7 days a week anyway, but just so no confusion.
So the motion's been moved and seconded for 14 calendar days, starting tomorrow morning when the dump opens. And that would be for residents only, homeowners only. It does not apply to commercial haulers or anyone doing tree jobs.
One question.
Go ahead.
So number 2 says the brush fee waiver shall commence the day following the storm event. So what about the people that went to the dump today?
Sorry.
Really? Because the storm was Friday.
Well, I was down the dump a few times today and didn't see a whole lot of brush, so.
Okay.
I think we could take
I
that,
just-
the administrator could take that up on a one-to-one basis, but I think, I did call the DPW director today and ask him if this was gonna be his intent, or if he was gonna support it, and he asked me that we start it tomorrow at 8. So, Chris, do you have a problem fielding anyone that,
No, I'm amenable to that. I think it makes sense. I mean, the board had a meeting. I mean, the event occurred over a weekend, so I think it's realistic that the board has to have a little bit of time to enact the policy.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on, town administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to go quickly through these. There was a question about the outstanding accounts receivables, so there was some material in your package about the number. I think it was more just the informational. Ambulance was by far the largest component to that. On the wastewater project update, I think we did talk a little bit about some of the work already, so I'm gonna kind of go over that. On the Dennis, Harwich, and Yarmouth Clean Water Partnership, just a reminder for folks, we did have some information in the warrant in regards to that was alluded to tonight. But just a reminder for folks that the community partnership meeting between the Board of Selectmen from Dennis, Harwich, and Yarmouth will be held on March 22nd at 6 p.m. at the Dennis Council on Aging and Senior Center. 1045 Route 134, South Dennis, Mass, March 22nd, 6 p.m. We did also receive, Eversource provided some vegetation maintenance work, just a notice to folks that they will be doing some selective removal of hazardous trees located along or just beyond the right-of-way edge. So they do have some material. I think we had this material in the package if people want to look at it with a little bit more detail. On the Mass DOT, the notice of road work, I actually had alluded to this, I think at the last session that I commented. They're actually not just on Route 6, but it's really the secondary roads and ramps that they're doing primarily this work. So it's not just on the primary road, but it's also on the various interchanges. I did have Lynn Cooper had provided some information. We had I think it was a 18-day stretch. And during that 18-day stretch, when it was below 32 degrees, we have a clause in our fuel contract that if we are 10% below or above the variance, that they can charge a force majeure, which is just a French term for an act of nature, but they could charge a different fee. So our contract kicked in. We will be seeking from the Finance Committee for that period of time, the additional cost. There was significant increases over the normal usage, but that was due to, I think it was 100 years of cold spell. We believe that will be in the range of $20,000 to $30,000. So we will prepare that request, which I think the board also has to vote on once we get the final numbers. We did also receive, and I appreciate some of the comments made earlier in the meeting, and certainly want to reiterate some of those, that these storms really challenge the system, and I think DPW, police and fire really did an outstanding job. And we did get a couple of acknowledgments. This was before the storm, of just some of the activities that people appreciate, some of the work that our folks do to make sure we keep the roadways safe for residents in the community. So Rod Moore had submitted a letter, and Elizabeth Dubuque and Robert Freitas thanked for some of the efforts of DPW. And that concludes my report this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions on that or comments for Chris?
No.
Selectmen's report, Larry?
None?
Julie?
I don't have anything, it's like,
Janelle?
I attended the Coalition of Women, Cape Cod Coalition of Women's breakfast on Friday. And for anybody who doesn't know anything about that organization, it is a grassroots nonprofit organization that guides women on the Cape through various governmental election processes and voting, and supports local chapters of various governmental organizations. So it was really good. The topic was resiliency this year.
Excellent. Don?
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. I just want to publicly thank our DPW public safety officials, water department, as he was involved. Community center, as we found out tonight, was instrumental in this storm. But driving around Harwich, it seemed like there's a lot of damage, and it was all cleared off the roads. And actually, I'd like to thank Eversource, because I think they've done an excellent job restoring power with 100,000 people out. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.